morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, I am back to show you a winning deck that, well, we all kind of thought it was probably going to end up winning. And I don't know if I'm terribly happy about this. It seems like the kind of Pokemon that is going to drive me absolutely crazy, and not in a fun way. It's Galarian Cursola, Cursola, or indeed, it's that thing what's got fainting spell. Yeah. You see, the ability here is what makes me absolutely terrified of this card. It's the same ability that the old Gengar had, and it is, and I feel fairly confident saying this as a definitive statement, the worst ability ever. Although it's actually called Body of the Destruction, according to the lovely David Hockman over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. If this is your active Pokemon and is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is knocked out. So your opponent goes through all this effort, builds up their Pokemon, does the evolving, gets a KO, and then if you flip a heads, you also get a KO. And bearing in mind there's lots of multiple prize Pokemon at the moment. So let's say a Zacian wants to take this out. They can. They absolutely can. But if Zacian takes you out and takes one prize, and then you flip a heads, you take two prizes. So they've gone and got 3 energy on their Pokemon, and you might have 0 energy on. And as long as you flip a heads when they KO, you win. And the problem is that this is an ability on a single prize Pokemon. You could turn it off with slacking, but no one's playing slacking. And the only other way around it is to KO without energy. KO using poison or burn or something along those lines. Which will work, but most decks just aren't playing that. Your average Zacian deck doesn't have an option for this. It's all well and good saying they can KO with poison and it's fine, but they've actually got to go and get the KO with poison, and something like a Zacian deck just doesn't play poison. Maybe Mewtwo and Mew can start teching in a Pokemon with poison, but not a lot of decks are going to have that option, and that's what makes this lovely. For the Galarian Cursola player, not for you. And well, unless you are the Galarian Cursola player. And the thing is here that we're not actually attacking with Galarian Cursola. We're not even playing any psychic energy. Doesn't matter. What we're playing is more Pico V. Yep, it's a hit and run deck. You see, more Pico V has a hit and run attack. For 2 lightning, 1 colourless energy, you do 150 damage, discard an energy attached to more Pico, and switch to the bench. Cool. And then you put Galarian Cursola into the active. And now your opponent either has to gust around. Remember, Great Catcher won't work. Well, it might work. You are playing an Oricorio, but if you're worried about Great Catcher, don't bench Oricorio. Done. So it basically means that they're playing Pokemon Catcher, but they have to flip a heads. Or they're playing Custom Catcher, but they can only play if they actually draw 2 at the same time. And even then, because they're playing 2 at the same time, they're limited to twice for the entire game. And then they've got to attack it. And they'll get a KO, but there's a 50-50 chance they get KO'd as well. Remember, on your turn, you're still hitting at least 150 using more Pico. And then on their turn, if you flip a heads, you may well end up getting a KO on them as well, possibly for multiple prizes. No, it's not fair. Let's be super clear about this. It is not fair. Gutted, quite frankly. And I must confess, it's taken a while here. It did take a while for me to see a more Pico Galarian Cursola deck. I would have thought this would have been more popular. It's kind of wonderful. Now, elsewhere in terms of Pokemon, it's pretty much what we would expect. We have the aforementioned Oricorio. If one of your Pokemon was KO'd the previous turn, you get to draw 3 cards. Bearing in mind the other blocker we're playing here is Lily's Clefairy. So that it gets KO'd, but it doesn't give up a prize, but it counts as a KO, and then Oricorio lets you draw 3 cards. pretty silly good. We also play a copy of Mew here to protect your bench, and a copy of that Mimikyu whereby damaged EXs and GXs have no ability. Could hurt Oricorio. If Oricorio takes any damage, it loses its ability. So either don't drop Oricorio or don't drop Mimikyu against a spreading deck. Done. Sorted. But it also means that your opponent loses their GX abilities, and you're going to be dropping this down if you think it's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt you. We then see a copy of Tapu Koko Prism Star. This is pretty important. It lets you attach 2 lightning energy from your discard to your bench Pokemon if you lost zone it from the bench. And you combine it with Thunder Mountain Prism Star for a turn 1 more Pico. Go second, accelerating energy with Tapu Koko, play down Thunder Mountain, reduces the attack cost of lightning Pokemon by 1 lightning energy, then attach for turn, and boom, turn 1 more Pico, off and rolling. It's pretty lovely. And I suppose I should mention we actually do play more Pico VMAX here as well. 3 energy, 2 lightning, 1 colourless, 180 damage to the active, 20 to each of your opponent's bench. Really nice for turning off those abilities when combined with Mimikyu, though don't forget Morpeko's first attack does 20 to the active, 20 to the bench for 1 colourless energy. If you're not going for the turn 1 Electro Wheel, it's nice for combining with Mimikyu to turn off abilities. And you're left with a deck that does a lot. It's a hit and run deck, but it's got some Pokemon, in quotation fingers, that don't give up prizes, and Pokemon that may actually take prizes when you attack them, and it can do a bit of spreading, and you've got the giant HP of Morpeko VMAX, and it all adds up rather nicely. Now, in terms of energy, we are playing lightning energy. Obviously, that's fairly important. But we also see a couple of recycle energy here. When they would be discarded from play, they go back into your hand. Quite nice to make sure you've always got a couple of energy ready, especially if you accelerate a bit of energy using something like Tapu Koko Prism Star. Now, in terms of trainer cards here, we've got the usual lightning tricks. We've got the aforementioned Thunder Mountain. We've also got Electro Power, so that you do an extra 30 damage with all of your attacks. Well, 30 more damage per Electro Power. It's not for every attack for the rest of the game, but it still totally works. We can still totally get away with it. We've got, in terms of Pokemon Search, Quick Ball, which will get out your basics, and Evolution Incense, that will get out your evolution Pokemon, as well as Mysterious Treasure, because you know what? You're playing a 4/4 line of Psychic Pokemon, plus Mew, plus Mimikyu, plus Oricorio. It's a weirdly quite heavy Psychic deck, so it makes sense that we would play Mysterious Treasure. We do play a copy of Adventure Bag to go and search out our tools, and in terms of tools, we've got a couple of Air Balloon. It gives free retreat to Pokemon that have a retreat cost of 2 or less, like Galarian Cursola. Yeah, it's pretty much a no-brainer, Air Balloon here. Gives free retreat to the Pokemon you want to leave in the active. If your opponent doesn't attack into Cursola, brilliant. You're good. Now, we also see here a copy of Island Challenge Amulet. Island Challenge Amulet is great. It lowers an HP of a GX by 100. 1 meaning it only gives up 1 prize rather than 2. It's there for Oricorio. You whack it on Oricorio. Oricorio then becomes a 70 HP Pokemon, which is low, but it only gives up 1 prize, so you know what? You're good. Now, our gusting of choice here is Pokemon Catcher. Flip a coin if heads gust anything into the active. That works quite nicely. Yeah, it's on a coin flip, but at least you can gust anything up when it works. We also see 1 copy of Reset Stamp, as is pretty customary in basically every deck at the moment, and the aforementioned Lily's Pokédoll. Now, in terms of supporters, it's a lightning deck, so we're playing Volkner, lets us search for an item card and a lightning energy. But we're also playing Professor's Research. Discard your hand, draw 7. It's the fastest, most aggressive draw card we've got in the game at the moment. And then Marnie. Marnie is the one whereby you and your opponent both shuffle your hands and put them on the bottom of your deck. You go and draw 5 cards, your opponent draws 4. It's a little bit of disruption plus a little bit of extra draw, which is quite nice. And then we see Faber. Faber gets rid of a Stadium or a Pokemon tool. We don't usually see much of this, but we do see a copy of Faber in this deck. If your opponent's playing any non-Prism Star Stadium or any tool you don't like, this gets rid of it quite nicely. Helps to slow them down, helps to hurt your opponent, and then hopefully you can then go and help yourself. And then a couple copies of Guzma and Hala, and this is one of the reasons to play Recycle Energy here, because Guzma and Hala searches for a stadium, a Pokemon tool, and an energy, so why not grab a Recycle Energy, and a Thunder Mountain Prism Star, and an Air Balloon? Oh look, that's going to help you set up pretty gosh darn nicely. And that's the deck, ladies and gentlemen. It's very much like the more Pico decks we've seen before, except you dedicate quite a lot of space in your deck to Cursola. And make no mistake about this, it's 8 spots in your deck, though you do have Mysterious Treasure, which helps. But if you play stuff like Oricorio, you should be alright. And at the end of the day, this should steal you a couple of prizes during the game. And if you can steal a couple prizes during the game, you're absolutely rolling. This could be fun, ladies and gentlemen. This could be fun. But right now, I'd like to know what you think. I'd like to know your opinions on this deck, whether you'd like to play it with or without this horrible Pokemon and its horrible ability. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, or you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are very, very nice. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.